United States, Miami Hook. A single moment can change a life forever. When a young black boy steps in to save a woman's life, he never expects what happens next, a reward so unbelievable that it leaves everyone stunned. Jaden Carter, a 10-year-old boy, spends most of his time helping his single mother with odd jobs to make ends meet. He knows the value of hard work and sacrifice, something his mother has taught him from a young age. They don't have much, but they make do. Jaden's mother, a house cleaner for some of the wealthiest families in Miami, works long hours to provide for them both, and Jaden often finds himself tagging along, running errands or helping wherever he can. It's a tough life, but Jaden doesn't complain. He understands that their situation is temporary, and he holds on to the hope that things will get better one day. Jaden is used to navigating the wealthy neighborhoods of Miami, where his mother works as a house cleaner. He's seen the grand houses and luxurious cars, and while he doesn't envy the people who live in those mansions, he can't help but wonder what it would be like to have a life of ease, a life where money was never a concern. Still, Jaden knows that these thoughts are fleeting. His life is one of hard work, and he takes pride in the little things, like helping his mom with errands or taking care of their home when she's busy. He's learned that every small effort counts, and he believes that by helping his mother, he is doing his part to create a better future for them both. While waiting outside one of the mansions she cleans, Jaden hears a loud crash followed by a faint cry for help. The sound cuts through the quiet of the neighborhood, and Jaden's heart races. Without thinking, he drops the bag of groceries he's carrying and runs toward the source of the noise. Without thinking, he drops the bag of groceries he's carrying and runs toward the source of the noise. As he turns the corner, he sees Mrs. Hawthorne, a woman who lives in the house, lying unconscious on the floor. Her body is still, and there's no sign of movement. Jaden freezes for a moment, panic setting in. He's never been in a situation like this before. What should he do? Should he call for help? Should he run inside? But before he has time to think further, he notices the faintest signs of life. Her chest rising and falling, weak but present. This is the moment that will change everything. Jaden rushes toward the sound and finds a wealthy woman, Mrs. Evelyn Sinclair, lying on the pavement beside an overturned pink couch. The bright pink of the couch contrasts sharply with the cold, unforgiving pavement, and Jaden's heart races. He can barely comprehend what's happening as he sees the woman sprawled out, her body motionless and limp. Her breathing is shallow, and she looks dazed. Her elegant, mint-colored dress is slightly torn, and her eyes flutter as she tries to stay conscious. The sight of her, so elegant yet so vulnerable, strikes a chord deep within him. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" Jaden kneels beside her, gently shaking her shoulder, his voice filled with urgency. He knows that this isn't just some ordinary moment. This is a life-or-death situation, and he needs to act fast. She barely manages to whisper, "Help, please," before her body goes limp and Jaden's stomach drops. His mind races. What should he do? He knows that time is running out. Without hesitation, Jaden checks for a pulse, remembering what his mother once told him about emergencies. His hands tremble, but he stays calm. He forces himself to think clearly, focusing on the lessons his mother drilled into him. Check for a pulse. Assess the situation, don't panic. He places his fingers on her wrist, his heart racing as he searches for any sign of life. There's nothing. His mind screams at him to do something, but he knows he has to stay calm. He must act quickly. He spots a car in the driveway and sprints inside the mansion, calling for help. Finding no one, He grabs the landline phone and dials 911, giving clear details of the woman's condition. His voice is steady, but his heart is pounding in his chest. I need help. A woman's unconscious, and I don't know what happened. She's breathing, but it's very shallow. Please, hurry. He repeats the address twice, making sure to get every detail correct. He knows that every second counts. The dispatcher assures him that help is on the way, but Jaden doesn't want to waste any time. He returns to her side, whispering, "Stay with me, please." His small hands clasp hers as he kneels down beside her, his fingers tightening around hers. He doesn't know what else to say. He's never been in a situation like this before. He's just a young boy, and yet here he is, trying to save a woman's life. The sirens are growing louder now, but to Jaden they feel like an eternity away. He's hyper-aware of the woman's shallow breath and her faint pulse, and he refuses to leave her side. Every second feels like a lifetime. Jaden continues to whisper words of reassurance to Mrs. Sinclair, his small voice filled with desperation. He holds her hand tightly, praying that she will stay alive long enough for the paramedics to arrive. As the sirens get closer, Jaden's anxiety begins to ebb slightly, but the uncertainty remains. What if they can't save her? What if he's done everything wrong? What if he can't do enough to make a difference? The paramedics arrive just as Jaden's hope is beginning to fade. They move quickly, taking over the scene with practiced efficiency. As they load Mrs. Sinclair into the ambulance, Jaden steps back, overwhelmed by the weight of the situation. His hands are still shaking, but he knows he did everything he could. He helped a woman in need when no one else was around, and that one act of bravery will change his life forever. He watches the ambulance drive off, the red and blue lights flashing, and he feels both relief and exhaustion wash over him. The event that started as an ordinary day for Jaden has now transformed into something he could never have predicted. A single act of kindness, a decision made in the blink of an eye, has led him into an entirely new chapter of his life. The next morning, Jaden is back at home when he hears a loud honk outside. He doesn't think much of it at first, but the sound is persistent, and it's unlike anything he's heard in their quiet neighborhood. He walks over to the window and peers outside, his eyes widening as he spots a luxury car, a Rolls-Royce, with tinted windows parked in front of his small apartment. He's never seen a car like that before, let alone parked so close to his home. His heart starts to race, and confusion sets in. Why would such an expensive car be here in front of his building? His mother opens the door hesitantly as two sharply dressed men step out of the car. They look out of place in the modest neighborhood. One of them, taller and wearing dark sunglasses, approaches her with a polite but firm demeanor. "Is this the home of Jaden Carter?" one asks. Jaden stands frozen for a moment, unsure of what to do. The men don't look like anyone he knows, and the presence of the Rolls-Royce makes him nervous. He feels his palms sweat as he nervously steps forward. "Yes, sir," he says, his voice small but clear. The men exchange a glance, and one of them nods toward the car. The backseat window rolls down, revealing Mrs. Sinclair, now fully recovered. She's sitting comfortably, wearing sunglasses and a grateful smile. She looks much better than the woman he helped just the day before. No longer pale and unconscious, but vibrant and full of life. Her presence seems to glow in contrast to the simple surroundings of Jaden's apartment. Her eyes meet his, and she gives a warm, appreciative nod. "Young man, you saved my life," she says, her voice calm and steady, "and I never forget kindness." Her words hang in the air, and for a moment Jaden can't speak. His mind is racing, trying to process the surreal turn his life has taken in just one day. This woman, whom he never expected to see again, is here, standing before him, thanking him for what was, to him, just a simple act of kindness. But now, it's becoming clear that it was much more than that. The driver steps forward and hands Jaden's mother an envelope. She hesitates, confused by the gesture, but when she opens it, her eyes widen. She gasps. Inside is a check for $250,000. Jaden's mother can barely hold the paper steady as she stares at the large amount. She's been struggling to make ends meet for as long as Jaden can remember. And now, suddenly, they have more money than they've ever dreamed of. Jaden's heart pounds in his chest. He looks at his mother, who is still staring at the check in disbelief. Her hands shake as she passes it to him, and Jaden can't help but feel a strange mix of excitement and fear. That's just the beginning. Mrs. Sinclair continues, her smile widening as she gestures to the car behind her. Open the car trunk. Jaden, still in shock, hesitates for a moment before walking slowly toward the back of the Rolls-Royce. His legs feel like they might give out under him as he opens the trunk. When the trunk pops open, Jaden's eyes widen at the sight before him, neatly stacked bundles of cash, totaling another $250,000. It takes a moment for him to fully comprehend what he's seeing. The money is stacked so neatly, almost too neatly to be real. He feels a wave of dizziness wash over him. The amount is so large, so impossible that it doesn't seem real. Jaden's legs nearly give out. I don't know what to say," he stammers. His voice is shaky, and he feels his entire body tremble as he stands there, looking at the money that has just been given to him and his family. His mother stands behind him, still speechless, her hand covering her mouth as she tries to process what's happening. Mrs. Sinclair smiles, her gaze gentle but resolute. "Say yes to a better future," she says. "This is for your education, your family, and your dreams." Jaden can't find the words to respond. His mind is spinning. He never expected this, never imagined that one act of kindness could result in a reward so life-changing. He looks at his mother, who smiles through her tears, and knows that their lives will never be the same again. News spreads fast. People in the neighborhood start murmuring about Jaden's sudden fortune. The first whispers are innocent enough, coming from the few neighbors who actually know Jaden and his mother. At first, there are congratulatory remarks. Some people stop by to shake his hand, telling him how proud they are of him. It seems like a moment of celebration, and Jaden feels a sense of pride. He can see his mother smiling, her eyes full of pride, as she talks to the few who still view him as the hard-working boy who helped save a life. But things quickly take a different turn. The excitement fades and is replaced by skepticism. Other neighbors begin casting jealous glances in their direction, questioning why a rich woman would give so much to a poor black boy. It starts as hushed murmurs, but as the days pass, the questions grow louder and more pointed. One day, as Jaden walks home from school, he overhears a conversation between two women standing near the corner store. Maybe he stole something from her first, and she's paying him to keep quiet. One whispers, her words dripping with suspicion. Jaden feels his stomach tighten at the thought. Was that what people thought of him? That his act of kindness was somehow suspicious? That it couldn't possibly be genuine? People like him don't get lucky like this unless they did something shady. Another mutters, and Jaden's heart sinks further. He wants to argue, to scream at them that he didn't do anything wrong, that he saved a woman's life and deserves this reward. But he knows that arguing will do no good. These whispers, these judgments, are now part of his reality, and there's nothing he can do to change them. It's not just the neighbors. As the story spreads through town, people start making assumptions, adding their own narratives to the situation. They don't know him, don't understand who he is, yet they feel entitled to judge him based on their own biases. Even Jaden's mother, while grateful, worries. "Son, nothing in this world comes without expectations," she warns, her voice heavy with experience. She tells him that people will always want something in return, even if they don't say it out loud. It's a bitter reality that Jaden doesn't fully understand but knows is true. His mother's words echo in his mind as he tries to make sense of the situation. He's happy for the money, of course, but a part of him is conflicted, unsure whether accepting such a grand gift was the right choice. He never expected any reward for his actions. To him, saving Mrs. Sinclair's life was just the right thing to do, a simple act of kindness. But now that the reward has been given, he starts to feel the weight of other people's expectations. Jaden overhears some of the cruel comments and starts feeling uneasy, wondering if accepting the money was the right choice. Is there something Mrs. Sinclair isn't saying? Why did she choose him, a poor black boy from a neighborhood no one ever noticed, to receive such a large reward? He starts second-guessing himself, wondering if there's more to her generosity than meets the eye. The doubts creep in, and Jaden begins to question the intentions behind the gift. Was it really just an act of kindness, or was there something more at play? He tries to push these thoughts away, but they linger in his mind, leaving him feeling uncomfortable. Despite saving a life, Jaden realizes that some people will always judge him based on the color of his skin rather than his actions. He can't control how others perceive him, and that's a bitter pill to swallow. The reward that was meant to change his life, to give him a better future, has also brought judgment, suspicion, and unwanted attention. Jaden now understands that no matter how hard he works, no matter how much he tries to do the right thing, there will always be people who will judge him based on his race instead of his character. It's a painful realization, one that he's not sure how to cope with. But in this moment, Jaden also knows that he can't let others define him. He can't let their opinions overshadow the good he's done. He's still the boy who saved a life, and that will always be the most important thing. Would you accept such a large gift? Or would you be suspicious of hidden motives? A week later, Mrs. Sinclair invites Jaden and his mother to dinner at her mansion. The invitation is a surprise, and Jaden can hardly believe it. After everything that's happened, after the overwhelming generosity and the life-changing gift, he's not sure what to expect. He's never been inside such a grand house before, and everything about it feels unfamiliar. The walls are lined with expensive art, the floors are gleaming marble, and the smell of a delicious home-cooked meal fills the air. Mrs. Sinclair greets them at the door with a warm smile, and as she leads them to the dining room, Jaden feels a mix of awe and nervousness. He's just a kid from a small apartment, and now he's sitting at the table with one of the wealthiest women in the city. It's hard to process, and he's not sure how to act. As they eat, she finally reveals why she was so eager to reward Jaden. The food is delicious, and the conversation is light at first, with Mrs. Sinclair asking them about their lives. Jaden tries to keep his nerves in check, answering her questions as best as he can. He talks about his school, his dreams, and his mother's hard work. But as the evening goes on, Mrs. Sinclair's tone changes, becoming more reflective. She looks at Jaden, her eyes filled with emotion. "Years ago, I lost my only son in an accident," she says, her voice heavy with sorrow. Jaden is taken aback by the unexpected confession, unsure of what to say. She continues, her hands trembling slightly as she wipes a tear from her eye. "He was about Jaden's age. I couldn't save him." Jaden listens quietly, his heart aching for Mrs. Sinclair. He never imagined that this act of kindness could be tied to such deep pain. Mrs. Sinclair's voice cracks as she tells her story, revealing the depth of the grief that has haunted her for years. Jaden can feel the weight of her words, and for a moment he's unsure how to respond. But he listens as she explains that the loss of her son has left a hole in her heart that nothing can fill. She tells him that she's spent years trying to move forward, but the pain of that loss has never truly gone away. She wipes a tear and continues, "When I woke up and saw you trying to save me, I saw him in you. It felt like fate gave me a second chance." Jaden's heart skips a beat. He never thought about it that way. What seemed like a simple, instinctive action on his part, helping someone in need, has taken on a much deeper significance. He realizes that his act of kindness has become a way for Mrs. Sinclair to heal from a wound that never truly closed. It wasn't just about saving a life. It was about giving Mrs. Sinclair the chance to reconcile with her past, to feel as though she had been given a second opportunity to make things right. Jaden realizes this money isn't just a gift. It's a way for Mrs. Sinclair to heal from a past wound. She's not trying to repay him for a simple act of kindness. She's offering him something far more valuable, a chance to make sure that he never has to face the kind of loss she did. "I'm not trying to buy your gratitude," she adds, her voice soft but firm. "I'm trying to make sure you never struggle like I did." Jaden looks at his mother, then at Mrs. Sinclair, understanding the depth of her gift in a way he hadn't before. He feels the weight of the moment and the responsibility that comes with it. He looks at his mother, who smiles at him with tears in her eyes. Jaden takes a deep breath, then looks back at Mrs. Sinclair. "Then I'll use it to help others, too," he says, his voice steady and filled with purpose. The words come naturally, and Jaden knows he means them. He wants to honor Mrs. Sinclair's gift in a way that truly reflects the spirit in which it was given. He wants to make sure that others, like him, have the chance to create a better life. Do you believe in fate? Or do you think everything happens by chance? With the money, Jaden and his mother move into a better home, and Jaden is enrolled in one of the best schools in the city. The difference is immediate. Their new home is spacious, filled with light, and located in a much safer neighborhood. The weight of financial stress is lifted off their shoulders, and they begin to feel what it's like to live with a sense of stability. Jaden's mother, who has worked tirelessly for years, can finally relax a little, knowing that their future is more secure. Jaden, on the other hand, experiences a shift that's both thrilling and overwhelming. He's always been the kid who just got by. But now, as he steps into this new life, he feels like he's been given an opportunity to dream bigger than ever before. The new school is impressive, with state-of-the-art facilities and a host of extracurricular activities Jaden never had access to before. For the first time, he feels like he belongs in a place that was once out of reach. His classmates are diverse, and many come from backgrounds of privilege. But Jaden quickly realizes that he has something valuable to offer. His past, his experiences, and the lessons he learned growing up in a struggling family are things no one else in the room can understand. he starts to see that the true value of his story is not just in the money or the opportunity, but in the resilience he's developed over the years. He learns that his experiences, while different, have shaped him in ways that will make him stronger in the future. But instead of spending lavishly, Jaden starts a small scholarship fund for kids in his community who need help. He could have easily used the money for things like clothes, gadgets, or luxuries, but he understands that the real value of the money is in how it can impact others. He decides that the best way to honor the opportunity he's been given is by giving others a chance to follow a similar path. The scholarship is modest at first, but Jaden has a vision for how it can grow. His goal is to help young people in his neighborhood access educational opportunities they might not otherwise have had. He begins by reaching out to local schools, talking to teachers, and working with community leaders to identify children who show promise but lack the resources to pursue their dreams. He knows what it's like to be held back by circumstance, and he wants to make sure that no one else has to feel the way he did. Jaden uses the scholarship fund to cover tuition fees, books, and school supplies for a few select students, and he offers mentorship and guidance to them along the way. Seeing the kids he helps thrive gives him a sense of fulfillment he never imagined, and it strengthens his belief that true wealth isn't just about money, it's about opportunities and lifting others up. Mrs. Sinclair becomes a mentor to Jaden, guiding him as he grows into a young man who uses his blessings wisely. She sees the potential in him, and she becomes a steady presence in his life, offering advice and support as he navigates his new life. Her wisdom and experience are invaluable, and Jaden takes her lessons to heart. He knows that he's been given a rare opportunity, and he wants to make the most of it. Under Mrs. Sinclair's guidance, Jaden learns to be more thoughtful in his decisions, more aware of the impact he can have on others, and more focused on the long-term goals that will help him and his community. She becomes not just a benefactor, but a friend and a trusted mentor. The luxury car full of dollars was just the beginning. Jaden's real reward is the future he's building, not just for himself, but for others. His experiences, his kindness, and his desire to give back to his community are what will ultimately define his legacy. As Jaden moves forward, he understands that success isn't just about how much money you have. It's about what you do with that success, and how you use it to make a positive impact on the world around you. Jaden realizes that by helping others, he is creating a cycle of generosity that will continue for generations. His story is just beginning, and he knows that the best is yet to come. What would you do with a large sum of money if you suddenly received it? Years later, Jaden, now a successful entrepreneur, returns to the same neighborhood he once lived in. The neighborhood looks different now. There's been progress, with new buildings and a stronger sense of community. As he drives through the streets, he's flooded with memories of his childhood, the small apartment, the struggles, and the dreams that once felt out of reach. Now, as he looks out over the changes, he realizes that his success has become part of that transformation. He no longer feels like an outsider in this neighborhood. This place, which once seemed so distant, now feels like home, in a way it never did before. He's come full circle, and it's clear that his journey has not only shaped him, but the community around him. He sees kids who remind him of his younger self and funds programs that help them achieve their dreams. Walking down the street, he spots a group of young kids playing basketball. They look up at him as he passes by, and he can see the curiosity in their eyes. They don't know his story. They don't know the boy who once dreamed of a better future, but didn't know how to get there. Jaden stops to talk to them, offering words of encouragement and listening to their hopes and aspirations. In their eyes, he sees the same hunger for something more, the same desire to escape the cycle of poverty. And in that moment, Jaden knows that his success was never just about him. It was always about giving back to people like these kids who are still trying to carve out a future. He funds after-school programs, mentorship initiatives, and scholarship opportunities for them. He's determined to ensure that they too have access to the same opportunities he once had. At an event, he thanks Mrs. Sinclair for believing in him when no one else did. The gala is held at a large venue, filled with influential people who admire Jaden for his business acumen and his charitable work. But for Jaden, the most important moment of the evening isn't the speeches or the recognition. It's when he stands before the audience and thanks Mrs. Sinclair for everything she did for him. He takes a deep breath, looking out into the crowd before speaking. "Your kindness changed my life," he says, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "You didn't just give me money, you gave me a chance to dream. You gave me a future when I had no idea how to create one." He pauses, glancing at Mrs. Sinclair, who is seated in the front row, watching him with a proud smile. Mrs. Sinclair smiles, now elderly but proud. She stands to join him on the stage, her eyes filled with warmth and affection. She looks at Jaden with admiration and joy, seeing how far he has come. "And look at you. You changed the world," she says, her voice filled with pride. Her words are simple but powerful, and in that moment, Jaden realizes that Mrs. Sinclair's belief in him has been a cornerstone of his success. Without her generosity and her faith in him, none of this would have been possible. Jaden knows that her impact on his life will never fade. The lesson? One good deed can create a ripple effect that lasts a lifetime. Jaden's journey from the streets of Miami to becoming a successful entrepreneur was fueled by kindness. It's a kindness that he's carried with him and passed on to others. The scholarship programs, the mentorship, the opportunities, all of it is a direct result of the kindness he received years ago. And now, as he watches the kids in his community dream bigger, as he sees them take hold of the opportunities he's created for them, he knows that his actions have had a lasting impact. The ripple effect continues, and Jaden's legacy will live on for generations to come. What's one act of kindness that changed your life or someone else's?